Hello and welcome to the first webinar in our 2025 on-demand webinar series, Bridging Vision and Practice. District leaders share how IM Math supports high-quality math education. We are so glad that you're here and watching, and we hope that you get a lot out of this webinar today and share with colleagues and peers afterward. And even though this session is recorded, we want to hear from you. So please reach out to us through the IM Certified blog, our support channels. You can schedule a call or create a new account at accessim.org to access our resources and provide feedback on today's webinar. You will find all of that at the end of today's presentation. We are your hosts for the presentation today, Catherine Castillo and Neil Tucker. Catherine is a senior specialist of implementation portfolio here at IM, and I am IM's director of marketing. And we are both so thrilled to be here with you and beyond excited that you are taking valuable time out of your day to spend it here with us. This recording includes ASL interpretation provided by Christine Papazis.
Now let's meet today's expert panel. Today's webinar includes an incredible lineup of IMers and subject matter experts. April J. Mouton, Associate Vice President of Product Development at IM. Grace Gleaves, Secondary Lead Math District Coach at Metro Nashville. Heather McMillan, Lead Numeracy Specialist at Metro Nashville Public Schools. Melanie Cifanelli, Director of Math at Syracuse City School District. And we're so excited to have them join us today and share their insights with us.
Thank you so much. So to get us started, let's first take a look at the IM problem-based teaching and learning model. We want to begin with this quote from NCTM. To ensure that students have the opportunity to engage in high-level thinking, teachers must regularly select and implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem-solving. These tasks encourage reasoning and access to the mathematics through multiple entry points, including the use of different representations and tools, and they foster the solving of problems through varied solution strategies. This quote from NCTM's Principles to Action provides a basis for high-quality tasks. These are the types of tasks you will find in the IM Certified Mathematics. Where do you see these attributes in the curriculum? We know that a written curriculum is only one piece in the puzzle. How these tasks play out in the classroom determines how students will access the mathematics. IM Certified Math uses a problem-based instructional model. The problem-based teaching and learning cycle fosters a collaborative partnership between teachers and students, encouraging curiosity about each other's ideas and promoting mathematical sense-making. At the beginning of the cycle, the role of the teacher is to launch the activity and make sure that students understand what the question is asking them to do without telling them how to do the math. In the next two stages, students work individually and then with partners or in small groups. In these stages, the role of the teacher is to be curious and monitor, listen, and ask questions so that they can understand their students' thinking. In the final stage, the teacher and students synthesize their learning by making connections between student work and the learning goals of the lesson. Take a moment to look at the hexagons. What do you notice? What do you wonder? IM's version 360 is a problem-based curriculum designed specifically to create these experiences for teachers and students. In IM certified math classrooms, teachers and students partner to create a space where teachers are curious about and trust student thinking to drive learning and where all students know, use, and enjoy mathematics. As we think about the IM problem-based classroom, we have a list here of what teachers are doing, and as we click in, we can see what students are doing. This means that teachers' actions are more important than ever. IM's problem-based learning model elevates the expertise of teachers in employing equitable teaching practices and illuminating students' brilliance. Teachers spend a lot of time in math classes providing opportunities for all students to make their mathematical thinking visible. listening to and observing students' mathematical ideas, and referring to students' ideas and posing questions that lead to student explanation. As we dive deeper into this slide, let's talk about what the students are doing. Here we see our students are given opportunities to build on their individual and collective strengths while engaging in grade level mathematics. As a result, all students are positioned as knowers and doers of mathematics. They share their reasoning and make their thinking visible, and listen to and respond to each other's ideas. So, you heard a lot from me about what problem-based learning is, but let's now hear from some of our panelists to learn about their journey in implementing IM certified math.
All right, first, I'd like to hear about your vision and how you wanted students to learn math. So start by telling us about your vision and how that vision aligns with IM math.
I'll share. So in Metro Nashville, our vision is rooted in the math teaching practices that are described in NCTM's Principles to Action. So in Nashville, we tend to focus on a foundation of teachers having strong content knowledge, along with a understanding of how that mathematical trajectory plays out. In addition to that, we want our students to experience an equitable and challenging curriculum. As a large school district, we have a very, very diverse population, and with that, a very also diverse selection of schools. And so we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of all of our students to achieve success in mathematics. We also have a very firm belief along with that every student and every person is capable of learning and being successful in mathematics. And so again, that leads to a reflection in what we expect in terms of our class culture for students, but also more importantly, we believe in teaching with integrity rather than fidelity or being completely off script and random. And so we ask teachers to plan with that in mind, but also being willing to adapt based on the evidence that we see in student thinking. So if we see a student ready for a challenge, let's go ahead and up the ante and give them something a little bit harder. If we need to scale it back before we can move further, let's go ahead and take a step back so that way we can move 5 steps forward. So it really is a vision that is student focused, but with the belief that all of our kids are capable.
Love that.
We also in Syracuse want to hold our students up high and ensure that all of our students' voices are heard in the mathematics classes. I do want to think about our district vision. Our district vision is to ignite passion for learning across our SCSD family in a way that's inspiring them to make a lasting impact on communities and beyond. And the reason I wanted to start there is because that phrase, ignite a passion, is exactly how we feel in the math classes in our math department. We want students to have this passion of mathematics ignited within themselves. Several years ago, we had a mathematics department task force that was convened, and it comprised of teachers, building leaders, board members, district leaders, families, community members who came together. We also used NCTM's Principles to Action and research from Adding It Up to help guide our work. And as a team, we decided that we wanted to ensure that students develop problem-solving skills, deep content knowledge, and enthusiasm. And that was really important for us to put in. We want students to be enthusiastic for mathematics through the engagement with problems that invite curiosity, collaboration with peers, discussion, and argument. We really want our students to feel like doers of math and continue that year to year so that they feel empowered to make mistakes in the classroom, to argue with their peers around mathematics, and to really develop deep conceptual understanding that will transfer across any scenario that they're given.
Awesome. So what I heard you both talking a lot about is really empowering teachers to use those effective teaching practices and to teach with integrity and really use their professional understanding and content knowledge to push student learning forward. And I also heard that you're really wanting every student's voice to be heard and to help build that positive math identity. So those are really powerful visions. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question and tell us a little bit about why you chose IM. Who was involved with the decision to implement IM math in your context?
We sort of took a journey in Syracuse to IM, and I'm really thrilled that we ended up with illustrative math. However, we started several years ago with work around the 5 practices for orchestrating discussion with Peg Smith, and Peg worked with us for several years in our middle schools in grades 6 through 8 to really develop an understanding of what those 5 practices really meant, what it felt like, and what it looked like in the classroom for students to really engage in deep conversation and discussion and build concepts together as a community. We really dove into how to support productive struggle, assessing and advancing questions, and how to synthesize ideas at the end of the lesson or series of lessons. So our teachers were really thrilled with the engagement of students and what they were seeing, but they were missing some coherence across lessons. So I have this task, now what? So we were actually poised at this point to start looking at different curricula that would help support this vision. So we had our vision. We had this work with Peg Smith and really getting kids engaged with conversation and learning about math through discourse and problem solving. So we sought out curricula that would help support teachers in engaging students in coherent mathematics across the board. We did have a group of teachers from across our district come together. We used the EQUIP rubric to study the IM curriculum. And what was really fascinating is the teachers saw our work that we did with Peg Smith in the IM curriculum. They saw the 5 practices built in as an instructional routine. They saw places where students had the opportunity to discuss, to try something out, to make some mistakes, but come back together again and discuss concepts. And I felt like the teachers really moved us in that direction because they saw the vision of the math department, but they also saw work that they were doing in their classroom in a more coherent way.
Incredible.
And it sounds like our journey is a little bit similar. Metro Nashville began exploring task-based instruction in the mid 2015, 2016. But during the pandemic, we started supporting with illustrative math as we went to the virtual setting, right? And as every other school district, trying to figure out how do we support these kids in a virtual world. And so for us, implementation has been a journey, but it's also been about having really strong partnerships with organizations that support task-based instruction, such as Illustrative and some of your partners that you currently work with. And so we began an unofficial adoption by supporting with Illustrative in 2020, literally in the midst of the pandemic as it was kicking off, and actually found some success with that. And so when it came time to adoption, our adoption was delayed by 2 years because of that. But the very first thing we did was, as a district, work with teachers to really, what does it mean when we talk about high quality instructional materials, right? Because let's be honest, we can put a lot of amazing stuff in front of teachers that looks fabulous and is amazing, but doesn't necessarily have that depth and that content that is going to support student learning. So in Tennessee, adoptions are teacher focused, and so we decided to invest in our teachers by providing that training to them before they even dug in. With the adoption of illustrative math, many schools in our district have site-based coaches depending on the principal's discretion. In our priority schools, which is what Grace and I specifically focus on, it's actually a requirement that our schools have a site-based coach. So we support our site-based coaches with that. And so when it came to implementation, beyond the standard 2-3 day training, we've invested heavily in our coaches with kind of the train the trainer approach. So that way, when they go back into their schools, they're able to support their teachers to implement illustrative math, talking about the language routines, meeting the needs of our students with our high EL and EE populations. And so really looking at what are our students' needs and how are we going to support that. And so we have continual ongoing professional learning and development around that just based on what those needs are.
Wow. So both of your stories kind of had a common theme, coherence and teacher buy-in. So that was really interesting to hear. And also that ongoing professional learning component. So let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the impact on students. So what has been the impact on students? And you can also answer, have student subgroups performed in ways you expected? And I'm going to start, I know we have the next slide is going to show some data. So we'll start with that, a little data for you. If we could switch to that slide, and then maybe we can start talking about that.
Sounds like Syracuse data. So we in Syracuse, we really have been working hard on implementation. And as part of the work through partnership with IM and West Ed, we decided to survey our students and garner a sense of what is the student experience in an IM classroom. So what was really interesting that across all of our middle schools, we had very similar data. So students are feeling that the teacher values their ideas. 90% of our students who took the survey are strongly agreeing to that. My teacher wants to understand my wrong answers as much as my right answers. 87%. I feel comfortable sharing my ideas with a teacher, and I feel comfortable sharing my ideas in a small group. These were all, the teachers were thrilled when we were looking at this data. And again, it was so interesting that it was consistent among all of our schools, it was just very interesting to see. Now, we do have some areas that we need to improve. One of the areas that was also consistent across all of our schools was students feeling comfortable sharing their ideas and solutions in whole group. So small groups were great, sharing with the teacher were great, but just feeling comfortable sharing whole group, they weren't as excited about that. So we are working on that as a team, actually, to think about how can we make students feel more comfortable in whole group. I think the frequency in which students are sharing with their peers and their teacher was interesting. It was lower than we expected. So teachers were actually a little caught off guard by that, and we're wondering, I wonder what's happening here and why students are thinking the teachers feel like they're sharing this on an ongoing basis. So it's just really interesting the difference of when you have a student perspective and the teachers are now thinking, oh, maybe there are times that I could actually increase students talking with one another and sharing their ideas in small group first. Maybe that will increase their comfortability with sharing in whole group. So we've had some really great conversations, and the student data is starting to spur on teachers' inquiry. And teachers are now trying some different things in their classroom to try to increase some of the data that they felt they really wanted to make sure they increased for their personal classrooms.
Incredible.
Thank you. I'm going to continue on talking about where students were. I had a student a couple weeks ago say, I feel like I'm thinking about math differently by doing it this way. And it like made my heart melt because it was so exciting um, just for that student to be able to recognize that I am seeing math differently and I'm thinking about it more than just this is what my teacher told me, so this is what I'm going to give you. Within our district,
we have been a level 5 for the last 3 years, which has been really exciting. What that means is that on average, our students in math are growing 2 or more years. Uh, Still very exciting as it comes to achievement. We're not there yet, but through this continued growth, we will get there. I think Heather also mentioned that we support priority schools. That means that they're in the bottom 5% in the state. Last year, we had 1/3 of our middle schools graduate from being in the bottom 5%. So that's also really exciting. I'm gonna let Heather continue to share what's happening inside of our schools with our students.
Yes, and so following up on Grace, so we are super excited, even though this is a stressful time of year with state testing and all of that, but we're super excited because in the next week and a half, we're going to start state testing, and we have literally 4 of our middle school priority schools that are right on the verge of exiting. So the next 2 weeks are going to be potentially pivotal for these schools to graduate from our care and return to the larger district. But going back to the larger district, there was a recent study out of Stanford and Harvard universities, the Education Recovery Scorecard, that listed Metro Nashville as number 3 in terms of the gains and post-COVID recovery in the country, and we were actually only one of 2 districts to rank in the top 10 for both math and ELA. So we are super excited. Like Grace said, we're getting tons of growth, and now we're super excited to see how that's going to translate into student achievement.
Wow, thank you all for sharing your stories about students. I mean, that's why we're here, right? This is why we do what we do. So what I hear you saying is that you're not going to give up on this. You're just going to keep layering those supports in for teachers and students because you know that this is what is right for your kids and for your teachers. So let's go ahead and dig into the next question. And let's talk about some differences between how maybe your veteran teachers versus your newer teachers experience the implementation of IM. And you can share any examples that you have.
I have 2 teachers in mind. One of them is she retired last year. It was her last year. She was 32 years in. And the other one is her second year, and she was on a waiver. So starting with her, it was exciting to watch her dig deeply into the lessons for the math. We would do the math, and as we would walk through, she would ask deep conceptual questions because she was like, I just don't get it. Can we talk it through? And it was very exciting to see how that transferred into the questions that she asked her students. She made them relevant for where they were. She took the things that they were already thinking and built upon it. And I felt like she was able to embrace it quickly and truly want to learn from the curriculum and grow from it. Going to the veteran teacher, that was a little bit more challenging to get her to buy in to what we were doing. But once she started digging into the curriculum with integrity, not just like, fine, I will do it because you told me to, but digging into it, asking questions, there was a bit of discomfort. There were moments of discomfort where she would say things like, wait, no, I've never done it this way. I didn't teach students that way. And it was an opportunity for us to go back. Like she would ask, can we go through it? And as we did, it was fun to see how she translated that into her classroom, but also incorporating the wealth of knowledge that she had. So it wasn't like I am only focused on this in front of me. It was I am incorporating this into what I already know works with my students. And the gains that she was able to experience, and even the turnaround in her mindset as it pertained to the curriculum and what her students were capable of, was really exciting.
I love that. A lot of times we hear, this fear that we have to change everything about what we're teaching. But what I heard you saying just then was, you don't have to change everything. You're going to still do all of the great things that you know and do as a professional educator. And we're going to take it a step at a time. So that was really exciting to hear. Melanie, do you want to add anything to this one?
As I shared earlier, we were working on task-based instruction with teachers prior to adopting illustrative math. And our teachers who were really working hard with PEG and with this idea of task uh, just kind of melted right into the curriculum and utilized it so beautifully. They really picked it up. They had work to do to really understand the coherence across series of lessons and within the unit, and even understand unit by unit how coherent the standards are, and that standards will come back. Um, but day-to-day lessons, they really had, I felt like they had solid um, ways in which they plan and really thought through lessons. So their uptake was a little bit easier, I think, for the teachers who have done this work prior. What's interesting is I see a mix with new teachers. New teachers coming in, I think it depends on the training that they had prior. So I've had some new teachers coming in who are all about problem-based instruction and using tasks, and we're excited that we were using IM. And then I have others who weren't as familiar. They really didn't teach that way in their college where they came from. So it was interesting to me that there are differences. But the new teachers are definitely willing to learn and willing to coach. I just this week we ran a lesson lab with a brand new teacher in our district, and oh my goodness, her uptake of she's a seventh grade teacher and she's teaching expressions and equations. She just did such a beautiful job of really pressing students for accuracy, pressing students for reasoning. And it was just beautifully done. And she was so excited that she's like, I actually did the whole lesson in the time frame. I had a warm up, I had a synthesis, I had an activity, I had a synthesis. She felt really good about that. And I think I think Grace and Heather will say the same thing, that supportive teachers is really important when we're trying to implement curriculum like I am. We have to ensure that we have support for teachers, and teachers feel comfortable also. Just as we want students to feel comfortable making mistakes, we want teachers to be able to do the same thing and feel comfortable doing it in front of others and saying, hey, this didn't work. Let's try something different. And that was the beauty of this teacher. She tweaked something every single section she had. She tried something a little bit different. And that's what teaching is. And that's what makes teaching exciting.
Couldn't agree more. Wow. Well, I'm hearing some major themes that I'll sum up at the end of this, but let's go ahead and get into our next question. So now let's switch over to, did you go through an implementation dip? And the first person that talks about this, if you'll kind of explain what that means to you, and then any steps or practices that you did to get out of it if you experienced an implementation dip.
For me, an implementation dip usually happens after a year or two of what everybody's really excited with a new adoption, right? If you have teachers on board and teachers are selecting it, there's a lot of excitement. So we're kind of up here and really excited. And what can happen with implementation is that we may not see, maybe we don't see gains right away, or we think that it's just really challenging and it becomes more there are some obstacles or barriers that get in the way, and our implementation tends to dip a little bit, meaning we aren't seeing maybe the highest quality instruction happening, or maybe some folks are starting to, move away a little bit from the curriculum and do some things outside of the curriculum. So we definitely experience this. We actually started with IM in the fall of 2019, and we never completed the year due to COVID. And the next 2 years, of course, we had our teaching, our teaching just wasn't the way we knew it to be. So once we started feeling like school was happening on a more regular basis, there were several things that happened. We had many new teachers come in. We had some teachers retire or move from the district. So we knew that we had to sort of reboot our implementation. This is actually about when IM and WestEd, our partnership came about, and we started to visit some classrooms, and we started to notice maybe that some of our classrooms might be less student-centered than we would like to see. So we really started to think about why this might be. We spoke to teachers, we learned about their wins, the things they like about the curriculum. We also learned about some of the things that are sticky for them and what's challenging. And I think it's those challenges that you have to lean into where we really start to learn more and more about the curriculum and more about implementation. There is a phrase that I keep in the back of my head all the time. I heard it first from Deborah Ball at an NCTM conference, and she said that experience changes belief. So I didn't know if it was belief in the curriculum. I didn't know if it was belief or if there was maybe some fear around what would happen if I let students just go and start exploring. I didn't know what it was, but we wanted to start creating some experiences for teachers in a way that was collaborative, but also we had their back, right? We would be there if something stumbles, if you have a question, if you want to try something, we would be there. And this is where we hatched the idea of running some lesson labs. And I used to do lesson labs several years before. And I was doing it with a small intervention group, but I really wanted to bring this experience back into middle schools because we did have it at one time. Subs are an issue for the schools, so we decided to riff off of an IM lesson lab, which was a video lesson lab, and we combined what we did and with what IM was doing, and we created, I think the term was a mini lesson lab. So we are co-planning with the teacher. And again, we just had one this week. We videotape every section of the lesson throughout the day. So most of our teachers teach 5 sections, and we tweak along the way. Every single section we would think about what went well, what might we want to tweak, what do we want to try. And we couldn't believe the difference in the classroom after our first lesson lab. And the teacher, oh my goodness, was so excited. She was excited that all of her students were thinking and talking and sharing ideas. One of her classes, we used co-constructing questions. The questions were so good, they didn't use IM's questions, they used the students' questions to debrief the lesson. It was just such a positive experience for this teacher, and you could just see how proud she was. And a year later, she's still really doing the work. She's really thinking through her lessons. She's taking time to read through the teacher manual, which every time we do this, we hear from the teachers, oh my gosh, there's so much more in the manual that's supportive than I thought. I need to keep doing this. So since our first mini lesson lab, we held a 3-day lesson lab in the summer, and we have since held 3 others, one in 8th grade, one in 7th, and we finally broke into high school and we ran an Algebra 1 lesson lab in a high school. And every time the teacher is telling us what a great experience it was and how supported they felt and that they want to keep doing the work.
That's incredible. Before I let Grace share, I just want to stamp something that you said. You were talking about the teacher using co-constructed questions and how she, instead of using what was in the IM curriculum, she used what her students came up with. That's integrity, right? That
Yes.
is deciding what I'm going to use from the curriculum and what decision I'm going to make in the moment. And that was just so beautifully illustrated that I wanted to highlight that. Grace, would you like to share about this same question?
So I really appreciate this opportunity to hear from other districts because a lot of things that we've mentioned all throughout this webinar are things that our schools are doing to kind of help us as we exit an implementation dip. I can say that with comfort. We are coming out of that stage. People are buying back into what we're doing. There are like 4 things that we've really focused in on. The first thing is starting with the vision, not just our district vision or our math vision or our school vision, but sitting down and having a conversation with teachers. What is your vision for student learning? How do you want students to experience math? And as they answer that, it's so cool how IM ties into that. The thing you want kids to engage in math, this opportunity is there. You want kids to own their own thinking, this opportunity is there. And so allowing teachers to see how what they want for their students is available to them is thrilling. The next thing is creating time and space for teachers to understand the mathematical storyline across grades so they can see how the learning builds upon each other and throughout the unit. So seeing how mastery of the standard is achieved throughout the unit, not just in this one lesson. Um, and how doing the lessons, as we mentioned earlier, with integrity gets you there. The next thing is professional development. Melanie mentioned like math labs. We also have that going on in a few of our schools, and seeing the teachers try new things and be risky is exciting because that's what we want them to do. We want them to have a space where they are being coached and they're going through a cycle of, I'm going to plan it out. We're going to plan it together. You're going to watch me. You're going to give me feedback. I have this opportunity as a teacher to continue to grow and refine my craft. And then lastly, building teacher identity, starting where they are. Okay, this is where you are. That's great. It's the perfect place to be, and acknowledging their thoughts and their beliefs are valid. I love that you drew a picture. That's a great way. I did it with an equation. How can we connect that thinking? And having those conversations with teachers gives them the space, the opportunity, the flexibility to see that I can see math differently than you, but it still connects. And then we see that in their students. As their mathematical identity grows, their students' mathematical identity also grows.
Wow, such powerful stories. Like I could literally stay here all night and just let you tell me what you're doing in your districts because this is incredible. I do want to highlight a few things that I heard from all 3 of you tonight, just to kind of sum up our time together. I heard that mistakes aren't just important to normalize with students, but they're also important to normalize with teachers, and that it's okay that I don't get it right the first time. We're going to come back to it. We're going to learn together and we're going to do better for kids every day. I heard that we should listen and invest in our teachers through professional learning, get their buy-in when we're making decisions. And I loved the quote about experience changes belief, because Elena Aguilar writes a lot about that too in her coaching work. I heard a lot about coherence, not just coherence in the standards and in the curriculum, but also in learning trajectories for teachers and that alignment of systems, and that we should all stay the course. Yeah, we're going to have tough spots, but let's listen to students. Let's listen to teachers, and let's put our heads together and see how we're going to come up with a plan to support them. So this was incredible. Your journeys are incredible. Thank you for joining us.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Huge thank you to all of our panelists. We are so insanely grateful. for all of you and for the fact that you took the time out of your day to share your experience and your journey with IM. I know that everyone watching is getting a ton out of it. So huge thank you from IM to all of you. We also want to give a shout out, of course, to our IM certified partners, Imagine Learning, Kendall Hunt, and Kidem, all of whom help to make it possible for schools and districts to implement IM Math with the support and the flexibility that they need. If you haven't already, you can explore our newest full online curriculum, IM version 360, completely free for you to access all of at any time with no access restrictions at accessim.org. You can also join our mailing list to stay up to date about our upcoming webinars and to hear more about the IM experience, which connects educators to webinars, podcasts, our roadshow, where our first stop was in Des Moines, Iowa, conferences and events, case studies, and other engaging and interactive resources. Follow along on our landing page as we expand upon these experiences and build our bank of informative resources. Our goal is to deliver quality experiences to all of our IM community that inspires, uplifts, and encourages all learners to know, use, and enjoy mathematics. Also, if you haven't visited our website in a while, you may have missed a plethora of new free resources and ways to connect with us. You can download our free ebooks, view our on-demand webinars like this one, access our IM certified blog, get free teaching resources, or even schedule a call with our passionate and knowledgeable client support team. You can visit our website at any time at illustrativemathematics.org. And lastly, we want to say a huge thank you to our executive team, Bill, Kristen, and Chris. We want to say thank you to our senior leadership team. Both of these teams lead our organization to achieve its mission. And a special thank you to our interpreter, Christine, who is also our technical producer and marketing coordinator, lots of hats. And we want to thank our editorial team led by Kelly and the brand and comms department for all of your hard work in making this event a reality. And last but certainly not least, thank you, our IM community, for joining us for this webinar today and every day as we work toward affirming all students as mathers and engaging them in rigorous grade level mathematics instruction. Your feedback is invaluable in helping us improve our future presentations. So please take a moment if you can to complete our survey and share your thoughts on today's webinar. Your input will help us tailor our content to better meet your needs as educators. The survey will close on April 30th, 2025. We so appreciate your time and participation today. Until next time, take care and enjoy your day. We're signing off now. Thank you and see you next time.